Think of a girl, 21 years old, straight out of college, full of aspirations, dreams to take on the world, and then she is told that she has cancer. And some of the doctors who tell her that you only have a few years to live. Remember, she's only 21. Turns out that destiny had something else for her. Not only did she beat cancer, but she in fact created India's first and largest private jet and helicopter charter company. Let's welcome on our special edition today, Kanika Tekriwal, the founder and CEO of JetSetGo. Warm welcome to you, Kanika. Thank you so much for taking the time out.
Thank you so much for having me.
Well, it's such an incredible story that you have. Every time I think about it, I get goosebumps. And I think more and more people should get to know more about it and your journey and learn from it so much as well. But at 21, when somebody is told that you have cancer, what is the feeling like?
Sakshi, I think if I was told I had cancer at 37 today, I would probably take it very differently. I would be like, oh my God, my world's going to come to an end. But I think when you're younger, it's just easier to take so much, right? You just absorb it. You're a sponge. You're just, I think, so much more optimistic about life, lesser responsibilities. So at that time, it was for me, okay, fine, okay. What next? I don't think the magnanimity of the whole thing really hit me. I was like, ठीक है हो गया अब क्या करना है. I don't know if that's my approach to life or how God gave me that power to do it. But I was very pragmatic. I was all about, okay, fine. Step one, step two, find the best doctor, find the best this, find the best that. I remember walking into Crossword, this bookstore in Bombay, and buying every book on cancer. And, every damn book, there's a book called Cancer for Yoga and Lance Armstrong's 2 biographies on how he won the Tour de France 7 times. I was so, every time I had a bad day, I would just read those books. Right? I mean, ab theek hai, uske baad his, he got defamed for drugs, but it really gave me a lot of motivation. I think it was, if I had to put it in a nutshell, I never really realized how big a deal it was.
Yeah. But Karika, if somebody gets to know at that young age that I have cancer, I think the first instinct would be, and somebody's told that you have only a few days or a month to live. The first instinct would be that, okay, I'll go all out. I'll live my life to the fullest. I'll do everything that is in my mind to achieve and to do. But you, while battling cancer at the age of 22, went ahead and founded a company. So how did that happen?
So I think actually that was my way of going all out. I'll just put a little background to this. I belong to a Marwari family. Girls never worked. Girls weren't given wings. I never saw my mom given the freedom she deserves. I never saw any of the women in the house, be treated with the respect that they deserve. And I think for me, it was very clear from a very. And then I went to boarding school. Sorry, and I think for me, when I went to boarding school, I was the kid who was the most bullied kid in class, probably. I was the biggest loser in class. No one wanted to sit next to me. No one wanted to stand next
Why?
to me. I was just an outcast. And I was also 1.5 younger for my grade. I was always the youngest kid. All the kids in boarding school had been to a preparatory school before boarding school. And here I was, a 7-year-old or 6.5 years old, 7-year-old kid, left in boarding school in a different. I was a North Indian living in Uti in boarding school. So, I think I was, in my head, the only thing I wanted to do was find my worth, right? And some people's finding their worth could be, okay, I have 5 days to live. Let me go all out and go shopping or partying. Or, now if you don't have 5 days to live, I will go eat all the best food in the world and just chill, right? Because I found my worth. And I think that's what it was for me. It was very, I think cancer, I always say cancer was the best thing that happened to me because it was a wake up call. It was like, screw it, let's do it. Let's not listen to anyone. Let's go out and win our dreams. Let's go out and do what I really want to do. What's the worst that can happen? It made me feel a bit invincible, if I can say that. And why I'm so open about sharing whatever's happened is, I meet a lot of young girls who are suffering a lot of problems and they're not given the right credit for fighting these problems and being where they are. I had a platform, I'm able to speak about it. I think it's so important to share what you've been through in life and survived in life to get where you are, because there's going to be that one person in those 100 people listening to you who needs that little motivation to say, I can do it. And, I think I found that for me as well. When I read Lance Armstrong's books, when I read Richard Branson's books during that time, for me it was like, I can do it. So I think for me, as soon as I got my treatment got over, there's no cure for cancer. You're in remission for 5 years. The day my treatment finished and the doctor said, okay, maybe there are no cancer cells in your body, I was like, I have to go find my worth. I have to go build something. I have to be able to look at myself in the mirror and say, Kanika, you did a great job. And I think that's what it was for me. It was never about it. I had no clue how to do it. I had no plan. And I had no idea, to be honest. I remember, when I was diagnosed with cancer, a lot of my aunts told my mom that even if she lives, who'll marry her? Do you really want her to, do you want to go through all this? Don't tell anyone she has cancer. Who will marry her? The moment I heard that, first thing I went over to Facebook and wrote, yeah, I have cancer, deal with it. I mean, that time it was a rebellious thing to do, but I was just like, why hide? And I remember telling my mother, don't worry, I'll be on the cover of Forbes 5 years from now. I had no idea how that'll happen. I mean, I never made it the cover, but we made it inside multiple times in less than 5 years by God's grace. But I think, it was my all out was that my going crazy was, going and proving to myself that I'm so much more in life, right? And I can do what I put my mind to.
So, what was your family's thought process like when you said that, you're just out of it and you want to now go ahead?
Well, everyone was against it. Nobody wanted me to get, finish treatment and move to Delhi and start work. My mother obviously was in full support of me. I think she saw that I needed new lease in life. I remember my father saying that you need to stay at home for a year. Your skin color has changed. Your size has changed. The way you look is looking so different. Recover from the inside. I said, boss, if I live for one more day in Bhopal, I will go mad. Okay, that's the last place I'm going to live. And I think that was the most important thing. The moment you give yourself time to procrastinate on your dreams and to sit over things, it's you're not doing anything to get closer to your dream. You're just creating more and more distance, right? And I think the faster you act, the earlier you fall, the faster you get up.
Absolutely. So, at 22, a lot of us are still figuring out what we're supposed to do. And you go ahead and choose for yourself one of the most unconventional spaces to start your company in. The aviation industry, first of all, it is highly regulated. Second of all, it's very risky. Third of all, it's completely male dominated. And at that point in time, when nobody had even heard too much about women starting up, doing something, and especially in a space like so unconventional, so tough. What made you choose that?
So actually, I think I'm still figuring it out.
Okay,
Nothing's changed between being 21 and 37.
okay.
But I think I will always be figuring it out. But I think, for me, it wasn't about, is this path unconventional? It was something I wanted to do. Like I told you, I don't think I realized what I was doing. I don't think I realized the path I was setting on. So I don't believe in plans. I don't believe that you have a 10-year goal. I don't believe that you have your business, you could say, ठीक है 5 year plan होता है, 3 year plan होता है. But even in 5 years, boss, the way the world is changing, you don't know where your business is going to be 5 years later. I'm sorry to say it. Did Ambani know that he's going to be doing what he's doing 5 years ago? No. And I think that was the same with me. When I started out as a marketplace. I thought I'm going to be the next Mark Zuckerberg of the world. I'm going to make a platform. People will come book their planes. People will come list their planes. Little did I know that I'll be owning a few planes in a few years, which will become many more, and then we'll keep growing from then on, right? So I think I never thought ki yaar unregulated hai, I'm a girl, why should I do this? I was like, this is all I know. And this is my dream. I have to do it. Like today, if you ask me, would you do something else? If I was doing something else, I'd probably be making 10x the money I'm making right now. I'll probably be a lot more peaceful because
Okay.
aviation is a world of unknowns. You wake up in the morning, the weather is spoiled, your planes aren't taking off. All your customers are going to call and shout at you. Today, for example, a cabin crew couldn't find sugar in the plane. That is my problem. And I own up to the fact that's my problem because providing my customer with the best service is my problem, right? Now, no CEO in the country must be answering to sugar not being available. But that's the kind of business you're in. And if this customer gets upset and he's not going to fly with me, it is going to hurt my business. It is going to hurt me because I made a promise to the customer that I'm going to provide you the best possible service. So I think, that's what's made me kind of stick on with the industry, that it's so challenging. I think if I was doing something simple, And challenge, if there was no challenge, I would probably not wake up each morning. I need a battle to fight. There are days when I wake up like, oh my God, there's been no problem today. How the hell did that happen? And I think this is it, like planes get spoiled, for example. When planes used to get spoiled earlier, I would cry. I would like, oh my God, what do I do now? Shit, this customer's flight is disturbed. Now planes get spoiled, planes get repaired, planes get replaced. I don't even come to know. And I think that's the new normal, right? So every day you grow with the business. So at that time, did I know what I was getting into? Absolutely not. Did I know what I wanted to build or what I was going to build? Absolutely not. I think the difference between a good entrepreneur and a great entrepreneur is a great entrepreneur never knows what they're doing. And I'm hoping I'll be a great entrepreneur one day.
You already
And we're
are.
not really getting there, hopefully.
At 37, how many planes do you own?
We own 12 aircrafts right now.
12 aircrafts. At the age of 37, you have 12 aircrafts under your belt. How much does one aircraft cost to buy?
It's all assorted, like, they started like maybe a few $1 million, go up to $50 million. Yeah.
How much money did you start your company with?
5,600 rupees.
And you went ahead and bought millions worth of planes?
Yeah.
How did that happen?
I don't know, man. I mean, of course I know, but I don't think, so I was saying this today at the summit. Capital is not a constraint for any business. If you're doing a great job out there, there is enough capital. There are banks, there are NBFCs, there are customers who are all willing to fund you. We built our fleet by customer advances. We built our fleet by customers giving us their planes. We were managing customer planes. Now, as a rule, we don't manage. I mean, I don't want to manage aircrafts. So I'm trying to exit that business. But we built a fleet without owning a single plane in the early day. And I think that's what the litmus test is for any entrepreneur. How do you solve a problem without saying there is a problem? A lot of times if you go ask someone, why don't you open 10 more restaurants? If they're the restaurant business, they'll say, where do I get the money from? And that's where my interest gets cut off. If in an entrepreneur's life, there's no where, what, why. It is do. So I think, an entrepreneur is about being a hustler. I mean, what do you do all day long? You hustle, you figure out stuff. Like I said, I'm still figuring it out. Every time, if I've got 12 planes, I want 20 now. I'm figuring out how to get those 20. I want 30 when I get 20. The goalpost will always keep shifting. The day we bought our first plane, I was like, oh my God, we own a plane. Wow. But I was like, fake. Do I really only want one? And no, let's get more. Then 5 happened. Like, only 5. Then 10 happened. And, so I think your goalpost shifts as you reach each goal. So it's a never-ending goalpost. That football field is so long that you can't see the end of it, right? And I think that's how you make things work out, because if your dreams and aspirations stop growing, you will stop growing as a business. I think I went in 2018, I started speaking about eVTOLs and air taxis, and I went to the government and I said, we'll fly from home to office in an air taxi. And I remember people laughing at me saying, you're a small kid. Have you come from Star Wars? And today the whole company is working towards making air taxis a reality. Indigo's investing billions of dollars. I've got a great team who's working on this as well. A very small core team, but they're doing a fantastic job.
Yeah.
And I think, that's how businesses are built, because people have dreams and they turn those dreams into reality.
Fantastic. So, I want to ask, when you thought of that, yes, I'm going to be owning planes and people are going to be borrowing it from me. Some of the world's richest people borrow planes from you. What did you start off with? How did you convince people to that business model and to probably look at this?
So it's actually the first time I walked into a customer pitch. I remember it was in a customer's conference room. And I was the last girl to walk in. And this customer said, Madam, can you ask everyone for tea and coffee, please? And I wanted to cry. I was very young. I was 22, 23 years old. Tears almost came down my eyes. It took me all my courage to walk in and say, no, sir, I'm here to sell you these planes that you will use. It really took me a lot of conviction, courage, and putting myself on the spot. And he said, आप plane बेचोगे? नहीं sir, आप plane चलाओगे? नहीं sir. बेटा आप cookies कर लो ये कर. Like, he was going from here to there on different points. And I was just zapped. I said, what the hell? How can this man be like this? I said, okay, fine. You know what? I made up my mind there and then. Then I'm going to change his mind. And I'm going to make sure he uses our planes, which he did. And very proudly, he was one of our, ambassadors. He introduced us to the whole world, spoke so highly about us. And he always says, even today, that Kanika, before I met you, women were only secretaries and assistants in my office. Today, a large part of my senior leadership is women. And I think that's the most grateful thing. I mean, gratifying thing I've heard in my entire journey as an entrepreneur. And I think that's how it started. When you used to go to meet these people, you used to be scared. I believe that I don't know how to do sales. And I remember one of my early investors, Puneet Dalmia, telling me that if you don't know how to do sales, you can't be an entrepreneur. I was like, but I hate selling. And then I said, okay, fine. If I hate selling, I'm not going to sell. I will just go tell people what I do and give them the option to come and fly with me. I've never done research on a customer. I never go do background, dig into the customer's history, geography. I go and tell the customer about what I can do for them and if they'll give us a chance. And I think if they give us a chance, we screw up, we say sorry, no one's perfect. I think that's the journey. That's how the journey's been built. All our customers have come to us by word of mouth. We don't have money to advertise on big magazines and billboards, and I would spend that kind of money to do it. To be honest, this is not an industry that works on advertisement. This is an industry that works on safety, on your customer philosophy or your customer relationships. And earlier, I used to be really scared. Walking into someone's office. Now it's just like, you're offering the best solution there is out there. So what have you got to be scared out of? And the worst you're going to hear is a no. And if you hear a no, you hear a no, you try harder the next time.
Absolutely. In an industry where we have seen so many airlines fail completely, Jet Airways, Kingfisher, so many, Go Air, Deccan. How did you continue to believe in this industry that it's okay to stay? Was there any moment when you thought that maybe,
Because actually,
I will
I
not
think I think this
sustain?
twice a week or thrice a week. Like I told you, this industry is an industry of unknowns. One day you'll wake up, engine has a bird hit. One day you'll wake up, landing gear has a bird hit. One day you'll wake up, there were stones on the tarmac, they went and hit the engine cowling. Another day you'll wake up, pilot isn't well, he's not turning up to do the flight. One day you'll wake up, customers flush something in the bathroom which has choked the entire plane. So, I mean, this is an industry you wake up with where you're spending money out of your pocket which is never budgeted. And it's serious millions. Like, one bird hit can set you back by a couple of $1 million. So, which entrepreneur wants that? There's no surety in this business. It's also, like you said, highly regulated. The regulation is not what it should be for private aviation. The government's working very hard to get it to that, but it's still not there. So, like I said, I mean, it's stressful, right? And why would anyone do this is what I ask myself. But I think I love the challenge. And, for me now, I think it's more about putting India on the aviation map. And while we say made in India and all of that, yes, I believe that no one believes that the next best airline is going to come out of India, the next best aviation company is going to come out of India. Air India, you hear all the time people talking nonsense.
Yeah.
Indian HNIs are flying with VistaJet. Why? Why should we be sending our money abroad? Why should we be flying with international companies? Why is Emirates' biggest customer India? And I think for me, it's that now. For me, it is about making sure that we make India proud, and whatever it takes, I'm going to do it.
What will it take?
I think it's going to take a lot of conviction from customers, a lot of conviction from myself, and a lot of money and time. But I said, none of those are challenges. If your heart is in the right place, your mind is in the right place, everything's going to follow. And the opportunity is there. I mean, look at the growth story of this country. Look at what's going on around us. I mean, look at this AI summit. Whoever thought, you'll have hotel rooms going at 25 lakhs a night. Right? These are things that generate business for us as well. And I think it's so important to, contribute to this momentum in the country, which is why I'm very clear in my head that, whether I make it, don't make it, make money, don't make money, my part is to make sure the next best airline comes out of this country.
Wow. And how do you plan to do it?
So I think we're on the way to doing that actually now, with our focus on eVTOLs as well as private jets. The safety standards we're following, what we're doing is slowly growing our fleet. I think the more the planes we have, the better we do, the higher we will fly.
I also wanted to ask you, Kanika, that, of course, we've seen so much money goes down the drain. There's so much risk and everything. What is the one thing that will improve Indian aviation over the long term?
So I think it's actually multiple things, I'll tell you something really funny. No one talks about it. Have you seen the Indian customer? I have people who come and spit in the plane. They chew pan masala and they spit to the corner of the plane. I have people who flush diapers in plane loos. So, I mean, you read these stories about, people using plane seats like bathrooms. So, I think the customer also really needs to evolve. But that's on the lighter side. I think on a serious note, we really need to shake up our infrastructure. We have it. We need to use it more efficiently. You apply for parking to an airport, the airport will say there's no parking, but all the parking bays are empty. There's no transparency in the system.
Yeah.
The DGCA, if you look at it, is getting full EDGCA. There's so much transparency being created. Things are getting better. But if you look at the overall system, if the airports are your biggest propeller for growth in this industry. Now, if I can't see online on one page if there's parking available or not, and I am dependent on one airport director to approve my parking, how do I know what's going on with me? Millions of dollars go waste in this country in just positioning aircrafts from point A to point B for the lack of parking. I'll give you an example. I was in the airport the last 3 days. No parking, no parking, no parking. Finally, somehow my team managed to get parking for the aircraft. If I didn't get that parking, I would have wasted 10 lakhs in positioning the aircraft somewhere in the flag. And this is why people in India don't want to fly private. They're like, boss, I would rather spend 50,000 and go commercial than do this. So I think infrastructure is a big wake up call. We have the infrastructure. The government's created it. This government has been the most proactive government I have been seen in my life. What we don't have is people to run this infrastructure. And I think, either get the private sector involved, see how airports like GMR, etc. are being run, they're doing a fantastic job, or, bring more efficiency into the airport system.
Right. So, private jet, where you are in currently, it's seen as a very elitist space to be in right now. What are the biggest myths that you want to break about private jets to all our
Everything is a
audience?
myth. So, firstly, private jets are not a luxury. So, I'll give you an example, Sakshi. Imagine an industrialist who has a factory in Jharsuguda, a factory in Angol, and lives in Delhi. Okay, if he's going to fly, and these industrialists are the one, this 0.1% of the country is what controls and navigates the growth of balanced 99.9%. You're taking this guy in the morning, taking him to Bombay for a meeting, flying him to Jharsuguda for a plant visit, taking him to Angul for a plant visit, and flying him back to Delhi so he can attend another dinner meeting. Can you do that by a commercial plane? No, you can't. You think a lot of these guys like to spend this kind of money? No one likes to see their money parted from them, right? But what do they do it out of? It's not choice. I think the biggest myth is that these planes are a luxury. Look at the Indian market. 90% of the market is still business flying. Look at the American market. America, 40% is leisure. Do you see Indian families go on holidays by private jets? Not really. I mean, that's changing. Earlier it was like 2% leisure. Now it's at least 10% leisure, right? So I think the biggest myth is that private jets are a luxury. Well, no, they're not. I think the other thing is about safety, keeping in mind all the crashes, everything that's going on. People start to assume they're not safe. You've got to find the right operator. You've got to find the right crew. You've got to be confident in the plane. I don't think, if you look at the percentage of crashes globally, you also have to see the percentage of growth in planes, right? If you're saying, 1 out of 100 planes used to crash 3 years ago and 2 out of 400 planes are crashing right now, the crash rates have actually reduced. Safety has actually increased, is what people need to take into consideration. I think the third thing that people think is that, some people have never been on planes keep asking me, oh, is there a jacuzzi in the plane? Is there this? No, they're not flying palaces. They're very basic, simple planes, boss. You sit in them to get from point A to point B, and that's about it.
Okay. How much does it really cost to charge, fly a
So it's
private
very
jet?
varies actually. I think an entry level aircraft like say a B200 or a C90 costs about 1,20,000 rupees an hour. And it goes up to say a global 6,000, which can cost you anywhere between 15 to 16 lakhs an hour. And then the bigger planes which are not in India, like if you charter an Airbus, a corporate jet or something, which can even go higher to maybe $20,000 an hour.
Wow. So 1.5 lakh rupees, and then you can actually hire
Why not? Yeah, exactly. A
That's
small
all?
plane, yeah.
So a lot more people, are they interested in maybe celebrating their special occasions?
So, I think
going
again,
and
there's a
everything?
lot of interest.
Yeah.
But getting a takeoff slot from Delhi, getting a landing slot in Delhi, I think the infrastructure hurdles take over the experience more than anything else.
Wow. So if I can ask you, who are your most frequent flyers and which sector are they from? And
So I think actually for us, our USP has been business flying. Our USP has always been making sure the corporate traveler gets where he wants to efficiently, safely, on time. We don't really cater to the, Hollywood, Bollywood industry or the Bollywood industry primarily. We're not in the medevac space in a large manner. We're very focused on creating this niche of leisure and business travel. And I think sector-wise, we cover everything from infra to real estate to pharma to everything. I mean, the world's our playground, right? Mining and all of that. But I think we cater more to people who have businesses in far-flung areas. And yeah, I think that's what our target, and a lot of government flying, political flying as well. Yeah.
Okay. And what does it take to continue to have an aviation business that is continuously profitable? Because you've been managing to do
I don't
it
know.
in an
I don't ask
industry.
me that, man. So I'm worried about this year. I think this year could probably be the first year we're not in profit, but I will make sure that doesn't happen. But I think it takes a lot of perseverance and a lot of you have to be very fickle minded in this business and keep planning for the unknown. So I have friends in the business who lead very fancy lives. But you cannot expect this business to fund a fancy lifestyle. Like, this business is about, on a serious note, you have to keep creating funds for unknown situations. You got to keep creating reserves. You got to keep planning for the future. And I think the most important critical thing is having a brilliant team. And I think what we really have going for us is we have an amazing set of pilots. The culture is phenomenal. They don't believe in wasting resources. They believe in flying carefully, and which is why we have a 100% safety record. And I think that's what's most crucial.
Okay. Tell me, if somebody is still thinking of entering this aviation space, is it a good time to enter? And what should they do?
I think actually aviation is going to grow phenomenally over the next few years, and India is growing, and anything in the space of services, hotels, transport, travel. As the country prospers, we're all going to prosper. So I think it's a fantastic time for people to come in. There's a huge, market available out there. And yeah, I think they should definitely.
They should.
Absolutely.
Okay. And if given a chance to you to start a business now, would it still be in the aviation space, or would it be in completely different sector?
I don't know. That's right. I think I would still do aviations actually, because I think, like I said, for me, it's no more about me, myself, and I. For me, it's very clear. I've got to put India on the aviation map. So, no better challenge than this.
That's wonderful to know. If I have to also ask you, for a woman entrepreneur in this aviation space, what is the biggest challenge that you've had to face? And if you're still facing some challenge, then what is it?
So, I think actually for me, the biggest challenge that I think could continue to face is, I don't actually know, that's not a woman entrepreneur challenge, that's a different challenge. Let me just scratch that. So I think for me, the biggest challenge as a woman entrepreneur probably means something that is, I don't know, I've never really faced a challenge as a woman entrepreneur. There are normal challenges the industry has, but like, for example, lack of financing. This industry, no one wants to finance you. But I don't think as a woman entrepreneur I've really faced anything specifically, no.
But have you been ever labeled too ambitious? And what
Yeah,
is
that's the natural, boss. You'll always be. I mean, I think, when you talk loudly, you're considered aggressive. But if a man talks as loudly as you, he's considered ambitious. So I think all that, yes, hiring people can be an issue sometimes. A lot of people don't want to work for a woman boss. But I think all that's changed dramatically. I mean, my team's a testimony to that.
And if I have to ask you, in this time of a VUCA world that everybody is living in, where there's geopolitical risk, there is a lot of policy uncertainty, how should an entrepreneur really be looking at that aspect when they start up today?
So I think actually, none of us ever thought we would be living in this world, right? I mean, sometimes I think I've been hearing World War III. So in fact, I was telling my husband, I have another business idea which is only related to the world being hit by wars. What do we do to save ourselves? He's like, why are you talking like this? I said, because every day I wake up, all I'm reading about is, someone bombing someone somewhere. And obviously, it's not the best time to be alive. However, I think, as an entrepreneur, if you're going to keep worrying about what's going to happen to the world, you're not going to be able to succeed or find your place. I think you've got to just, if you find something which works for you, go ahead and do it. I mean, I have nothing substantial to contribute to this panel because even I keep wondering what's going to happen to the world at the rate we're going, to be honest.
Right. What's next for JetSetGo? You did say that, yes, you are at 12 aircrafts. You would want to go to 20 and more. You still are very passionate about aviation as a space, and you want to put India on the world map. How are you going to be doing it? What's next for JetSetGo?
I think it's actually for me, like I said, I want to put India on the world map. And to do that, you want to democratize private aviation. If you looked at the world 70 years ago, 60 years ago, the primary means of travel was horse carriages for the very rich, right? And otherwise people walked or they rode horses. Then as you move forward a little bit, I think 1% of the world owned cars, just the very, very rich. And then everyone was still on horses, foot, etc. And if you look at the world now, that's exactly the same place we're at. The 0.1% owned planes and helicopters, and the balance are in cars. So I think the world is evolving, and where do we contribute? Where do we go next is, make sure you can democratize aviation, democratize air mobility, make you fly from home to office at a fraction of the cost or the cost of an Uber. The third dimension is the only place you can use now.
But is it possible to fly at the cost of an Uber?
It will be. I think, that's what all of us developing eVTOLs, that's exactly what we're doing, and there's no point. Early adaptation will be by HNIs, of course.
Yeah.
But I think over a period of time, they have to be affordable. They have to work for everyone. And that's the only way it's going to work. And why not? Even when they're going to cost you $5-6 million, the running cost being $300 an hour, we should be able to make it.
That's
work.
via mobility of air.
Exactly. So I think that's the future. That's what we're focusing on. And we hope to make it happen.
So electric planes is something that's getting worked on right
absolutely. Yeah.
now. And in a few years from now, obviously the
I mean,
fuel is the biggest
when
cost.
I said 2029, we
Yeah.
hope to do the first commercial flight, people were like, that's so late. But I think, 2029 is what you're looking at.
You're looking at a first commercial flight
Of
with
eVTOLs,
JetSetGo.
yeah.
And that too in an electric fashion. Oh my God, that's like now.
Yeah, exactly.
It's like 3 years later and we are going to be
Hopefully.
having.
I mean, I said this in 2024, I'll do in 2026. We're in 2026, but so hopefully now 2029.
So globally, what's the aspect? Has anybody tried it
So
yet?
globally, there's about 4 companies that are getting approvals right now as we speak. Manufacturers.
Okay.
Once these manufacturers are certified, we bring them to India and then we start flying them. Is where
Okay.
we are.
Wow. So from EVs, we are still talking about on the ground, and now you're talking about
So
an
these are
electric
technically
plane.
pilotless planes. But of course,
Pilotless planes.
But I mean, that won't happen for the longest time. You'll still have a pilot,
Yeah.
navigating them.
Okay.
But the technology works autonomously, basically.
Wow. So the pilot will just see if there is anything going wrong or something like that, but will be just watching out as to what happens. But it'll be a completely pilotless
It should be running on
plane.
an iPad, more or less.
On an iPad.
Yeah, that's the future for you.
Wow, this is mind-blowing stuff. A plane being driven by an
Yeah.
iPad. Oh my God. How are you visualizing? What's the technology going to be like? I mean, we are talking about AI. You were at the AI summit. Tell us what's happening.
So I think, technology is changing dramatically. And I personally believe why the aviation space has been so undemocratized has been because it's been very capital intensive. Right? You always have the big OEMs taking over, the big airports running them. And I think that changed dramatically. Now you've got these amazing startups doing amazing work. And primary technology everyone's using is STOL or Lift. And it's like a human drone. If you can carry 100 kgs of weight from point A to point B in a drone, you can carry 500 kgs of passenger weight. That's the theory behind what people are doing. But I think it's going to work. So in fact, I've seen demos of quite a few as of now, as we sit here. Some have shut shop as well, but hopefully some will work.
Wow. So it's already been almost 1.5 decades since you've been working with JetSetGo. Why haven't you got listed on the stock market?
I don't even think that's the plans actually. In some business, I don't think I ever built the company in a manner that we wanted to list it, and I don't think we're at a place where we can list it. And I always say, aviation requires very long-term patient capital. It's not a 5-year exit game. If you want to be a part of the story, you've got to be very patient, and you've got to run the business profitably. Look at it running it from that angle.
Wow. I do have some rapid fire questions for you, Kanika,
course.
at the end. And that's something that I really enjoy doing with all guests. And this really brings out a lot of personality of theirs. So are you ready?
Absolutely.
One word to describe entrepreneurship.
Passion,
Okay. First thing that you do before making a big decision.
not think.
Okay.
Think. A lot.
Biggest joy of riding private.
Saving time.
Okay. One habit that changed your life.
I think praying.
Okay. Tougher. Which one is tougher? So raising capital or building a team?
Or raising capital.
Okay. A failure that taught you the most.
Losing some people. No, I don't know. I don't know, man. I don't have anything for this.
Okay. Late nights or early mornings?
Late nights, any day.
Okay. One skill that founders must definitely master in 2026.
A lot of perseverance.
Okay. Best advice that you have ever received.
Believe in yourself always.
Okay. One rule that you always break.
I break all rules all the time. Rules are meant to be broken.
Work-life balance, myth or achievable?
A complete myth.
Okay. One book that every entrepreneur must read.
Oh, so many. I think Stay Hungry, Stay Foolish.
Okay. If not aviation, which industry would you choose?
Space.
Wow, that's even bigger. All right. A leader that you truly admire.
Who would that be? I would have to say someone controversial, but I think a prime minister, yeah.
Okay.
Mr. Modi.
One thing that you would want to tell 25-year-old yourself now.
Don't take life so seriously.
Okay. One bias that women founders always face but nobody talks about.
Communication.
In one word, what does the aviation industry need more right now?
Infrastructure.
Wow. I want to ask you also if something you wanted to start up today with, say, you said 5,600, that's nothing today, say 50,000 rupees, what would you start off with?
I would probably be in the not-for-profit space.
Okay. And if I have to ask you in the end, that one message that you want to pass on to all women entrepreneurs right now, what would that be?
I think actually for me it would be believe in yourself. Don't let anyone come in the way of believing what you can do, who you are. You have to be your biggest supporter, your biggest motivator, and your biggest champion.
Okay. What's the one dream that you're still chasing?
Patience.
Oh, that's wonderful. Well, always a pleasure to speak to you, Kanika, and all the very best to you. You have such fantastic ambitions when it comes to aviation. You've done it so far, and all of us are waiting to see everything that unfolds in the world of aviation. Electric vehicle planes, and of course, not making private jets so much affordable that you go from home to office on an every day, just like with the fare of an Uber. I'm just waiting for all that
Thank you so
exciting
much.
time. So, thank you
Thanks a
so
lot.
much for being with us, and all the very best.
Thank you so much. It's such a pleasure to do this. Thank you.